xenophobic attack is unwarranted, unacceptable, and the idea that indigents would harbor anything that the few foreigners have taken over all the jobs doesn't make sense. And you know, by and large, if it's their own country people alone, those who will not work will not work. You know, it won't matter that Ghanaians are doing the taxi work. If the taxi drivers in these places are Ghanaians, when they leave, they will find it difficult to even have drivers, and let alone drivers who drive for the long hours that maybe the foreigners do. And these are unfortunate, but I must also admit that it isn't just an African thing, because as we sit here, I know that within the Americas they are targeting Latinos who drive big trucks, and for that matter, when they stop you and you can't speak good English, they arrest you, which is ridiculous. So the world is changing. The world certainly is changing, but as it changes, it remains the same. I mean, these are things that 1900s was there, and for us to see it popping up again, it is ridiculous. But we as a country have a lot to do. We need to make Ghana work. We really need to make Ghana work so that people do not leave our shores. There are professors in South Africa who are Ghanaians. I wonder how they would also manage. And for lack of a better word, are they now coming to Ghana to teach? And how are the arrangements? Mind you, the Laja in SA is quite good for education than the Ghanaian professors. And this will be a huge pay cut. But your life over money. And as it stands, this is what we were looking at. So agencies who are promoting people to go to SA, they should be warned that they should change their location. And we hope that it will end. And the South African government needs to show their commitment to international standards, that xenophobic attacks are not acceptable, and they should be seen to be working. But when you have a mayor of a certain jurisdiction coming out boldly, loudly, and making such pronouncements, giving 3 weeks ultimatum, that is troubling. Certain actions in government need to be taken for all of us to see that the government itself is not also encouraging this path.
Right.
Yeah.
Look, yeah, if you look at the responses that's coming in from the government of South Africa, would you be okay looking at the pace of pace with dealing with the issues in South Africa? Obviously, people argue that there are political undertones and that some section of the political elite in South Africa are seriously backing, what is happening in some parts of South Africa, bearing in mind that they have their elections coming in November. So obviously, there are some political undertones that can be ascribed to what is happening in South Africa. I don't know how that disturbs you.
Once again, thank you for having me in your studio. And I must first of all say good morning to my people in Sanarigu, Tamale, the northern region, in Ghana at large. I'm here to express my personal opinions on issues or questions raised, and any opinion expressed here does not affect any institution to which I belong, or any organization for that matter. But straight to the question, I am happy to hear what I've heard from my colleague, former MP. I have personal experience in South Africa. I left this country somewhere in 2002 and went to South Africa. South Africa is a country where I got my education, first degree master's, and PhD, and several other short courses or qualifications that I earned from other universities. In fact, I've had experience from about 5 universities in South Africa. I'm not happy. I'm not happy to hear what I'm hearing and the responses of the South African government. When the first xenophobia attacks happened in South Africa somewhere in 2008, I was then the regional or provincial statistician, the Bureau of Statistics, in other words, the Central Office of Statistics in South Africa, in charge of Cape Town, the Western Cape Province. I saw what the government of the Western Cape Province did, the support that they gave to foreigners. In fact, Zimbabweans, Tanzanians, and other nationals ran to my house. At a certain point, I had to leave my house because the pressure was too much. But I asked myself then, what policy measures should South African government put in place to stop this menace? It's a very troubling issue. South Africa is a signatory to many of the protocols. Free movement of people within the continent. People should be able to move to other African countries, legally establish businesses, and live comfortably. If you look at the causes of migration, people can live because of economic issues and other issues. We are all Africans. Why is South African government not implementing policies consistent with the various protocols that they are signatory to? Ministers, like I said, I'm not here to express any opinion on behalf of any agency. But I saw the posture of ministers in South Africa, opinion leaders in South Africa, who never uttered a word condemning xenophobia. Is that what we want for us as Africans? In fact, the president of South Africa then, I never heard, I don't know whether he had expressed any word against xenophobia. But personally, I cannot refer to any speech or statement made by the president then. And even our father, Nelson Mandela. If Nelson Mandela had uttered a word condemning xenophobia, I personally believe that xenophobia would have ended then and would never have repeated what we are seeing today.
Now they refer to him and other comrades who, now Africans make the suggestion that Nelson Mandela with other freedom fighters came to part of Africa looking for assistance in time of need. Now I don't know, but I heard Jacinta, one of the ladies, Jacinta Zuma, the former president, the daughter of the former president, arguing that Mandela and those colleagues were all sellouts. So that's the mindset that they have.
Well, the issue of the sellout is a very big debate, which when we start it here, we may not end it here. Right, so I wouldn't want to touch.
But I'm making reference because of the points that
you raised. You see, like my colleague indicated, when we were in primary schools, those days of xenophobia, South Africa under apartheid, those days of apartheid, sorry. South Africa was under apartheid. And I tell you that there were songs and appealing for funds. In primary school, we contributed monies to support South Africans. But years down the line, South Africans are now against us. And the very government of South Africa, the ANC, that has been in power since ever, let me put it. Look, South African government that sought for funds to liberate South Africa have not done anything. For me, they haven't done enough to ensure that other nationals in South Africa are free to live in South Africa, do businesses in South Africa. Yesterday, I listened to the ambassador, and I know him personally. And I'm so happy about the passion with which he's doing his job. Reaching out to the political leaders in the various provinces at the national level, that's the right thing to be done. But what impact would that have? Because this issue has been happening over and over and over. What is the government doing about it? Merely telling people, don't go to this place at this time, does not solve the problem. Doesn't solve the problem. We want to see pragmatic policies that the government of South Africa will put in place, or has to put in place, to ensure that there is no xenophobia anymore in South Africa. But you see, when we look at the issue, let me digress a little bit. What causes xenophobia in South Africa? It's all because of economic issues, stemming from the fact that majority of the citizens today, people who are like 50 years, 45 years, 60 years and above or below, we're not given enough opportunity to access education. And for that matter, many of them are not really skilled. In 2010, when I was then the regional statistician in charge of Western Cape Province, statistics had indicated that there were over 40,000 skilled jobs in government that were not filled. And this was as a result of the fact that they do not have enough skills within. So what do they have to do? They have to allow foreigners to come in. So when foreigners come in and take up this skills job, are they taking up South African jobs? Other countries allow the recruitment of experts beyond their boundaries. So should South Africa. And if locals are now pointing fingers at these experts, then the government must come out with a policy to protect them, protect businesses. But this is what we are not seeing. And I want to urge the various governments in Africa, the AU must call South Africa, sit with South Africa around the table and advise the government of South Africa, the ANC government, to ensure that they put policies in place to stop xenophobia once and for all.
Right. Okay, so we'll wait to see, what responses comes out from South Africa. Kwame, what will be your take on the issues?
Okay, well, thank you very much, David. And let me say a special good morning to our wonderful viewers, as well as my colleagues seated here. They have dealt with the issues, especially Doc, who had the opportunity of studying and living in South Africa. So you can best tell that his analysis will flow from the stream of experiences and not just conjecture. So I thank him very greatly for his explanation and analysis of issues relative to the issues in South Africa. And I think this is an overflogged issue. What is happening currently in South Africa, or South Africa currently, is a sorry state. And the current group of people who are leading these xenophobic attacks, I must unfortunately say that they are a confused bunch, because they don't understand the historical underpinnings of South Africa, for instance. They don't understand what camaraderie was expressed by many across the continent in relation to dealing with the issues of apartheid in South Africa. Indeed, they are still confused about where they have come from. They are confused about the ownership of the economic resources. They are confused about the political sovereignty. They are confused about cultural sovereignty. They are confused about security sovereignty of their own country. They don't understand where South Africa has come from and how South Africa got to this point. Indeed, all of us are alive to the realities which confronted South Africa during the apartheid regime. But it is not soon lost on us that the very people who stood against apartheid, who were resisted by the white majority in South Africa, sought solace and comfort in the arms of the brothers and comrades in Africa, particularly Nigeria, particularly Zimbabwe, Zambia, Ghana, for instance. You recall that when the issues of apartheid happened, Nelson Mandela went around the continent with a big cup in his hand, soliciting for support. Indeed, when he came, he didn't even have money to even feed. It was at the behest of Osagie Dr. Kwame Nkrumah that he was given something. And when he came soliciting for support, the conversation was, if you are going to deal with the white minority in your country, then we will offer you all the support. Okay? Then Nelson Mandela declined and said no, he was not going to sack the white minority in South Africa, albeit that they were controlling about 80% of the lands in South Africa. So, in one breath, if Jacinta says that Nelson Mandela was part of the conspiracy scheme, I would agree to that extent, to the extent that he allowed the whites to continue to stay in South Africa and to dictate the pace. I would agree with Jacinta in that regard. But to advance arguments that allowing black Africans to come into South Africa to work and to earn an income for themselves is by reason of the indecision of Nelson Mandela, which led to that, I would disagree with her. I would disagree with her. Look, Africans for Africans. Africa for Africans. Are you following the argument? So, you see, and it's quite unfortunate. I mean, these are people who are very ignorant. They are very ignorant of their history. They are very ignorant of, their politics. They are very ignorant of their economy. I happen to have schooled a little bit in Nkrumah School in South Africa, Bella Bella. And if you look, when we are driving to Bella Bella, almost all the lands there, they belong to the white minority in South Africa. Lands, proper arable lands. And their fight really is a misplaced one, because the fight should be about economic liberation. And if you are talking about economic liberation, it should not find expression in other people of the same continent who have come to South Africa to come and work and make an income. The issue relating to economic liberation of the black South African race finds expression in the deep-seated misconception that they have about their own politics. Are you following me? So that the argument should, or the fight should rather be to the doorsteps of the people who are controlling 80 to 90% of your lands. That's number one. Number two, you would also agree that because of the kind of political scheme that was put in place during the apartheid regime, a lot of the black South Africans, majority of them were not educated and are still not educated. So it is very, very dangerous, when you have some very few people who are educated, who take history and twist history in their favor, lead a bunch of illiterates, you know what the outcomes would be. Because somebody is half bred or half educated, they can pick that small knowledge that they have, they turn it around and create an issue, a mountain out of a molehill. A non-existing issue can be gleaned from a non-existing issue. Do you follow? A non-existing issue being gleaned from a non-existing issue and creating all these uncomfortable situations that we are confronted with on the continent. This is what I would say. I would want to plead with our Ghanaians, our comrades who are living in South Africa, that baby Aneha, you can come back home and we can build our country together. You can come back home, we can join forces and build our countries together. But I blame the perennial political architecture that we have had in this country from 1992 till today. I blame the leaders that we have had in this country. I blame the political class that we have in this country. I blame the so-called independent voices who have sat aloof, watched our country derail from the trajectory of progress all these years. I blame our forefathers, in fact not our forefathers, our fathers who have reneged on what they are supposed to do to ensure that we are economically liberated. There's economic sovereignty, there's political sovereignty, there's cultural sovereignty, there's security sovereignty, which will give confidence to the Ghanaian that I can stay in Ghana and make it. As I speak to you today, for those of us who grew up from the villages, I grew up in a village. I have been alive to the unfortunate situations that we go through as people who live in rural communities and peri-urban communities. Today, as I speak to you, the economy or the country is so hard that for the young Ghanaian who is only aspiring and dreaming of benefiting from the political architecture in this country and bettering their lives and by extension taking care of their family members, that kind of dream, that dream is shattered There is no dream. People cannot hope any longer. That is the unfortunate situation we have in our own country. And that is why you would have people like Jacinta, who perhaps has been, educated not up to even a certain level, take up this so-called fight or struggle and go after her own people on the continent. It is because of our own governments too. Because look, from 1992, David, if we were intentional, very deliberate about creating avenues and opportunities for the average Ghanaian to benefit from this country, by now people will not even move from Ghana to Nigeria even. The Star of Africa, Ghana was the beacon of hope, beacon of democracy, beacon of development and progress. And yet somehow we have become beggars. A one-time star of Africa is now the dark of Africa.
Well, I mean, there's this school of thought that no matter what you do, because migration is human nature.
I am not. No.
No matter what you do, people will always move wherever they find themselves.
That is human nature.
Yes.
I am not discounting the possibilities of people moving from one place to the other. That comes with urbanization. That comes, you see, and Doc indicated to you that there are various push and pull factors that will engender movement of people from one place to the other. There could be economic reasons, there could be political reasons, there could be social reasons, there could be cultural reasons. But more often than not, the argument is placed within the remit of economic reasons, and that's why people would move. And that is why I am advancing this argument that if we had so built our economy to the point where people can comfortably work in this country, earn an income for themselves, I am sure that people would have migrated, but the volumes would have been minimal. Because this gentleman who was brutally harassed in South Africa, who decided to come back home and now has met Ibrahim Mahama, who has decided to extend a shoulder of support to the gentleman. Now he's giving the gentleman something to do. Do you think that the gentleman will travel out of the country? I'm asking you, do you think, even if he's going to travel out of the country, he's going for some holidays or something, and then he will come back? I have often indicated that I will never travel and go and work in the US or Canada or wherever, because I love my country and I'll stay here, I'll hustle, get the money. If I'm traveling out, maybe some holiday, 1 or 2, 3, 5, 1 week, 2 weeks, I'll come back home. Okay, all I'm saying is that this should be a lesson. When an unfortunate situation arises, we should learn 2 things from it, or we should learn a thing or 2 from it. What we need to learn from this particular incident that is happening in South Africa is that we need to now revisit the books of democracy, revisit the books of development, ensure that there is deliberateness on our part as a people to develop our country, to build businesses, to build factories, to build companies, so that people can work in this country, earn an income, and they will continue to develop the country. Simplicity.
Right. Doug, you wanted to make...
Yes, in as much as I agree with my colleague that we need to build our country so that people can stay. The world has come of age that at this particular point, even developed countries still find their people elsewhere. So no matter how we develop our economy in Ghana, I can assure you that there will still be people who for some reason will migrate or move to South Africa.
I think we are in agreement on that. I think we are in agreement on that. I said that.
Yes. So I just want to clarify this point.
No, we are in agreement on that.
So to solve this problem, policies must be enacted and implemented to ensure that people are free to live in other countries within Africa or elsewhere, particularly in Africa, the AU, African Union. I always blame the African Union. This thing has been happening in South Africa. And I tell you, people seeing that they are killing, South Africans are killing foreigners in their country. Ghanaians and other African nationals continue to troop into South Africa. So you cannot stop migration into that jurisdiction. Mind you, South Africa is the most stable and the most developed economy in Africa. I stand for correction. Right. So, like you said, there are reasons for migration. Other people in Ghana will even see pictures in South Africa and will be tempted to move in there. I met people in South Africa who watched the African football. Is it the
AFCON?
AFCON. And because of that, they moved to South Africa. Some of them succeeded in the end, but others did not succeed. You get a point. So we cannot stop people from going into that country or going to
David,
other countries. But African leaders must sit up, call South Africa, sit down with South Africa, and task South Africa to implement policies that will ensure that other nationals in that country are safe.
I think that we are in alignment. I have not said anything contrary to the held opinion that due to globalization, migration is something that will always happen.
Sure.
All right. The point I am making is that, for instance, Ghanaians are in Morocco, Ghanaians are in Egypt, Ghanaians are all over the place. Okay? You go there because their economies are better. Are you following? You go there purely on the basis of economic reasons, and that is, I think that is an established truth. And every research, will lend credence to this position that we are, to this literature review that we are holding, that people migrate to South Africa, to other countries in Africa purely because of economic reasons. All right, and people do all manner of things just to get to those countries because the economies are better. I am not saying that we can stop migration, because others may move there because they like the topography, for instance. They like the weather. They want to go and buy houses there. Okay. But those are high-end people that you are talking about. I will be surprised if these South Africans were going after high-end Ghanaians, Ghanaians who are very wealthy and they have their own mansions and they have their business. I will be surprised if they will be going after them. They will be going for those who are, doing the menial jobs. Those are the ones that they will be going after. So the point I'm trying to establish, I guess, here is that, albeit that we are in alignment relative to migration, for instance, and the reasons for migration, I am still saying that in the final analysis, governments are supposed to build their nations.
Sure.
Governments are supposed to build their people. Governments are supposed to ensure there's an enabling environment for the purposes of ensuring that its citizens are better off. That is what governments are about. Right. So in that vein, I'm simply saying that we must, going forward, be intentional about creating opportunities. I do not want us always to sink into the belly of having partisan, extremely so political conversations about development. We must be united, one arrowhead. Where are we heading to? What is the direction? What is our development plan between now and 2035, 2040, 2050? Where do we want to see Ghana? Do you see your leaders think beyond their 4 years?
Right.
They don't think beyond their 4 years. They only think within the remit of the 4 years that they've been given. So they do things that will enable them win another election without necessarily doing things that will create opportunities for young people beyond the tenure of the 4 years. That is the problem, and that is what I want addressed. If we address that, believe you me, nobody will get up and go to South Africa and go to Togo and go to Burkina Faso to go and work and earn an income, albeit that they are at liberty to do that. But that will be a choice that they would make, not a choice they will make by reason of economic issues. They will make that decision freely without being in economic bondage. Right. Are you following me? Right. So that their logic or their conscience will be behind that decision that they are making, not because of economic gains. Right. That is simplistically what I'm saying.
Well, there's a report that suggests that South Africa thrives on tourism. Just last year, 2025, they had 8 million tourist visitors to South Africa. Out of this number, a report indicates 80% of the 8 million were from the African continent.
Yeah, that's
80%.
So. That is so. If I Singapore and all these countries, they thrive. If I Rwanda will tell you that they thrive on tourism because they have no natural resource. So tourism, yes, but what I'm saying is that, so for instance, look, when you are flying and descending into the northern part of Ghana, have you seen the vast lands there? Dubai was just like that. Yes, Dubai was just like that. No, I see myself as a northerner too. You know, but Dubai was just like that. Is that not the case?
Yeah.
What is our plan for the northern belt of this country? What is our plan? How do we want to see the northern region? Do we want the northern region to become a tourist hub, tourism hub?
Let me come in. You know, people pay to go to Nevada to go and play in sand.
Yes.
And when I was in Tamale, driving up all the way further, and,
beautiful landscape.
You know, was enjoying the sand.
Yes.
Savulugu areas. Then I said to myself, I mean, they have turned sand activities into money.
Yes.
People dress up, geared up, goggles and things, and they do festival in the sand.
Yes.
And how dusty you get.
Yes.
And rich people pay heavily
To get dirty.
to go to Nevada to get dirty.
You know,
we have a lot to do.
Senior, if we were intentional that, okay, the northern belt, because of the vast lands, we want to invest hugely in agriculture, we want to make it a tourism hub, it is possible, it is doable. You can get partners, you can do it. But because we are always thinking about Accra, Kumasi, Accra,
and also
Kumasi,
we do small
Accra.
business too much.
Exactly.
I mean,
we don't think big.
If I tell you the amount of shea butter the skin industry uses,
Exactly, you'll be amazed.
I'll be wondering why we don't have all the top skin care companies from France and what have you come into Ghana for shea butter, which when you close your eyes in, I mean, farming shea butter in the north is like
A hobby.
You know, it's so natural. So anyways,
so there are job opportunities. It is left with the, and you spoke about policy. You know, there's something about policy. Policy finds expression in the mindset of government. That is policy.
Yeah.
Policy finds expression in the mindset of government, in the direction of government. So policy will shape the thinking patterns of government. So if government says that, look, by policy design, we are going to ensure that there's value for money, they will pass an act that will ensure value for money. If the policy of government is to ensure that there is proper access to legal education, they will pass an act.
Right.
Are you following me? So it means that government has to be, be confined with a thought of expanding our economy to the point where we will create opportunities beyond the peripheries of Accra and Kumasi into other areas where we have not explored. And then you would be surprised that people will move.
Maybe the seat of government should go north.
Yes, I would gladly support it. Then development will go there.
And then people
Right.
will explore.
Right.
Yes.
I'm so glad to hear that. Honestly, because if you look at the
There's a huge disparity.
of the north,
There's a huge disparity. When we move beyond Kumasi and go to the north, there's a huge disparity in terms of development.
David, this calls for a workable national development plan. National development plan. If Ghana should implement a long-term national development plan and all successive governments follow through
That's it.
the same plan,
Right.
The Chinese way.
the Chinese way.
Right.
In fact, the South African way, even
But
though
they call
South
you-
Africans are driving foreigners away, but you see that there has been one government in place for all these years. Other countries like the US, they have their national plan. Obama comes, he has to follow it. Whoever comes has to follow it. I don't want to mention the current president of the US. You see, so the MPP, the NDC, the PNC, all the political parties, if we could come together at a round table to develop a very good or pragmatic national development policy document, even though I know there are few or there are some national development plans, but how many Ghanaians actually know that there are national development plans? And whatever a particular government is implementing, whether it is consistent with a particular national development plan,
Right.
we don't know.
Right.
So Ghana, we need to wake up, come together and develop one national document,
That's it.
national development plan, such that any political party that is campaigning around the same national development policy.
Right.
So that a party that wins
Yeah.
must implement policies consistent
With the
very
policy.
dictates of that particular national development plan. And that is what we are lacking in this country.
You know, there's this directive principles of state policy that should ostensibly guide all governments in the pursuit of social justice, if you like, or social development or economic development and so on and so forth, right? But because of the way it has been designed, you cannot even question people as to why they are not following even the directive principles of state policy. Are you following me? Because that's where they talk about free access to basic education and, you know, ensuring development, equity in development, etc. But do they follow? They don't follow.
Yeah.
And nobody can do anything about it.
Government
Unfortunately.
assurance is supposed to
Yes.
be doing that.
Yes. But it is not.
You know, it's not strengthened.
Maybe, David, maybe sometimes we must take off the lenses of partisanship. Maybe sometimes we should do that. In terms of conversations that would inure to the benefit of posterity, let's take off the partisan lenses.
Right.
But I think the media has a lot to do.
The media is even now partisan.
So
You see, the media is highly partisan now.
So-
And that is why it is so unfortunate. So, for instance, Dr. Adnogisi will sit here and say that I think we should move the seat of government to the northern region. Some of his own people will come and say that, Wabodamana. Why is he saying we should move the seat of government to the northern region and not Ashanti region?
So that's
or not eastern region?
why we need a national development plan.
I agree, but
That's
it is
makes
more
provision for
Doc, it is more of our mindset. Because you can have a national development plan, some political party will come into office and make nonsense of it. What can you do to them? So it is more of mindset and removing our
We can
partisan
make the
lenses.
plan binding.
exactly.
No, we can do
Binding
that.
on
Look,
all successive
that
governments.
is why I'm saying that even there's a constitutional provision that caters to some of the things that you are talking about. But they say that it is non-justiciable in many respects. Are you following? Even in this country, there are matters which matters are not decided upon by the courts because they say it's a political question. So I'm saying that the policy prescription and direction of this country ought to be looked at carefully, but not from a partisan lenses, from a patriotic, so politically patriotic lenses. Because if we are political, then we can ask the right questions. But it must be from a genuine place of concern for the development of Ghana,
Right.
not a place of taking political advantage where necessary, you know, for the purpose of winning a subsequent election.
Right.
If we begin to think about it that way, then we can put the feet of government to the fire of responsibility. And let me single out this gentleman, Mustafa Bande. You watched his video. He is brave enough to criticize his own government, to say that yes, I'm part of this government, but that is happening, I am opposed to it. We should begin to build men of courage and substance.
Right.
And once we are able to build men of courage and substance, development will be as easy as A, B, C, D. And that will translate to bettering the lives of the person who lives in Achemasafo, the person who lives in Sandema, the person who lives in Fanchenebra or Fancheneko, Kotiabua, all those places.
Right.
They would have comfort in the kind of, you know, country that we want to build for them.
Right. Let's move on and come back home. Let's come to Ghana. Yesterday, there was the arrest of the Agona West NPP organizer, and that has sparked a lot of controversy and brings back the debate about the issues on political tolerance, free speech, and in fact, the role of state security agencies when it comes to dealing with these issues. The gentleman we are told has been released on bail, but the discussions have been rekindled, and we want to have that. Look, I want to start with you. It's coming from, okay, Kwame, let me start with you, because you will have to take leave of us. Where would you pinch this? Because obviously the NPP is not happy anytime any member of the party, is picked up for investigations and, questioning. The current debate is that government, or especially the doorstep of Mahama, he's being intolerant. He's, going against or criminalizing free speech, so to speak. Is that the case?
You see, David, Politics is a very, very funny enterprise. Depending on which aisle you are on, you view things differently. Just recently, myself, together with Ama Pratt, and very well-meaning Ghanaians embarked on a demonstration that was dubbed Agbewo. Do you recall Agbewo?
Yeah.
Quite recently, there were other people who embarked on demonstrations in respect of the curtailment of free speech by the Eswal administration. Quite recently, investigative journalists were maimed, some killed. Others had to flee to other countries so that they would have their sanity intact. Quite recently, it was very difficult for anybody to open his mouth and question or criticize the Eswal administration. Very recently, people were picked up in the wee evenings or wee dawns, and we didn't even know where they were being sent to. Very recently, there were people who were parading themselves as paramilitary people who were in some khaki, arresting people, slapping people, beating people for exercising their democratic and constitutional right. Quite recently, we saw journalists who were unable to speak truth. All journalists in Ghana very recently became sycophants because they were afraid of criticizing and just chastising the Eswal administration. Very recently, we saw that happen. Indeed, it took the GJA president at one point to speak directly to His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the former president of Ghana, I think at some GJA event or so, where he plainly spoke to the president and told the president that the media was being suppressed. So it is not lost on us. All of us are alive to that reality. All of us are aware of the atrocity that happened, much to the chagrin of the respect for democracy. David, so indeed, we all went to the polls to elect a new leadership so that sanity will be restored, so that free speech will be restored, so that people could speak boldly and bravely without recourse to political intimidation. What are we seeing today? We are seeing the very things that we criticize, maybe not to the same level, recur. Maybe not in the same region as was experienced in the Eswal administration, but we are seeing some creeping suppression of freedom of expression. And for me, that is problematic. As a student of law, as a student of journalism, and as a true patriot of this country, that is problematic. One of the things which has helped this country, or which has held this country together, which has held this country's democracy and the rule of law and the practice or the exercise of it together, is because of the liberties that people have to express themselves, so that people are not bottling emotions in them. Because when people bottle emotions in them, there will be an explosion, and we don't want an explosion. So allow people vent their spleen, allow people speak, allow people express themselves. Some of it may be true, others may be false, but that is their opinion. An opinion expressed may not necessarily be factual. So by all means, subject the ones that are not truthful to the rigors of the law. Are you following? But you should not create an impression that you are suppressing the expression of their speeches because it is against government or is going against government. Indeed, people can hold their personal opinion that there is doing so, because yes, the lights come on sometimes and it goes off sometimes. So because there is no definitive definition of doom so, anybody can ascribe a definition that settles their emotions, if you like, or that makes them happy. That in my view, this is doom so. How can you say that by somebody defining doomsday from his own perspective, that the person has acted in violation of some law, or that the person must be arrested because the person expressed himself freely. How can you do that? But who is the president of Ghana? Who is the president of Ghana? The buck stops what? With the president. The president is the chief minister in this country. And so everything that happens will be laid squarely at the doorstep of the president of the Republic of Ghana. The president is not a supernatural human being. The president is the president of the good people of this country. And in this country, we have people who belong to different political ideologies. And you as a president must not pick and choose who to serve. You are serving everybody. After elections, the president is not the president of NDC. The president becomes the president of the good people of what? Of Ghana. That is why when he goes and is representing the country, they say the president of Ghana. They don't say the president of NDC. That must be told. And that must be told boldly. So if the person posts the president's picture, he is our president. Tomorrow, I can be happy. I can go and post the president's picture and say that there is no doomsday. Will I be arrested? If I posted the president's picture today and said that, oh, there is no doomsday, would anybody come after me? I'm asking you. But because that particular post did not go in favor or in the direction of the government, then by all means the person must be arrested. I will not tolerate that. And I don't think any reasonable, well-thinking Ghanaian must tolerate this. This is not what we voted for. We voted for a paradigm. We voted for a new shift in the way we conduct government business. We voted for a new leader to come and liberate us from the shackles of the political indecision, the political suppression that we were reeling under in the previous administration. You cannot come and be doing the very things that you criticize that administration of. It is wrong. And every right-thinking, well-meaning, patriotic Ghanaian must speak against this. Lastly, before I take leave of you, David, there is this creeping problem that, if not dealt with, will become an inferno. These bail conditions that we are politicizing, these bail conditions that we are using as a means of incarcerating people, these bail conditions that is proving people guilty, we ought to tread cautiously, because we are nursing a very dangerous dragon which may create a problem for us going forward. I have often opined, and I'll reiterate, that the fact that an allegation has been leveled against somebody does not mean that the person has committed an offense. It is a mere allegation. The matter must be sent to court. You have to come and prove your case. And in criminal cases, because the liberties of people are involved, the threshold is always high, beyond reasonable doubt. So if there is any iota of doubt in the evidence so adduced in court, which will shift the reasonableness of the matter that is before the court, the accused person will be freed. So I am saying that we are living in a country where we are creating the impression that people, once they are alleged to have committed an offense, or once we get the police to arrest them, that by all means they've committed an offense and therefore we must punish them. We are punishing people deliberately, going under the discretion which must be exercised by the judges in relation to bail application. Okay, we are using that as a punishment. We ought to tread cautiously. The Constitution is clear. The Constitution is clear. The rights and liberties of people must be protected. Freedom of movement must be protected. That all persons are innocent until proven otherwise. So you cannot, by reason of just merely, for instance, Dr. Admoku is here, sitting here. I can go to the police station and go and say that Dr. Admoku is a thief. He will be picked up and then he will be sent to the police station, denied bail. And then when they send the matter to court, he now has to provide two sureties, bring $500 million before you can meet your bail conditions. Why are we doing that? Why are we doing that? You have seized, for instance, people's passports. Okay? You have seized their properties and frozen their bank accounts. So there's certainty that the person cannot move out of this country. Then you say that before you can grant the person bail, the person must also bring $500 million and then 2 houses, whatever. And then when you raise issues or you ask questions, they say that, oh, but you can go to court for variation. Why must I go to court for variation if that discretion exercised by the judge is reasonable? The constitution is clear that in the exercise of discretion, one must do so reasonably and not arbitrarily. And in concluding, I am saying that we need to tread cautiously. This administration has some goodwill. The good people of Ghana are behind this administration. That is why, even though we are seeing a huge economic turnaround, which is not translating to the pockets of the good people of this country, we have kept quiet. Because of what? Because of the trust that we have, or because that we have given some leeway, okay, to this administration to operate and turn around the economy. To that end, I want to caution that anything which will be done by this administration, which may invariably affect the goodwill that the good people of this country have for this administration, they should see themselves out in 2028. Because the very things that they complained about, if they are doing the same things now, then the good people of Ghana will not see them differently. Will not see NDC differently from MPP. The good people of Ghana will then say that NDC is a transformed or a transformation of MPP. We don't want to get to that point. So they need to be very minded. They need to be careful. They need to be cautious. They need to treat all peoples in Ghana equally before the law and allow the law to take its full course without any political interferences. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Baba, for that submission. I want to come to you. One has given us, a vivid viewpoint from what he sees, but I wanted to touch on the role of the security agencies. People think that the security agencies now are being used, by government, to achieve whatever purpose that these issues are coming up.
First of all, let me be very clear that bail conditions, I think, have been weaponized and are being weaponized in this country. And for that matter, the government is not helping our democracy. As KOD or Kwame just said, some of the bill terms are just not making sense. People's assets are frozen. Their ability to travel by air or sea is taken away because of non-access to passport. And within our very comfortable country where we are very family oriented, finding Kwame or Ama is not difficult. And some of these people are known political actors who have not ended their political career, and for that matter are still active. Nobody is, in exile. So I think that, first of all, especially when other actors within the NDC, when they are arrested, are given bail conditions that are almost very normal. In my, that's how I perceive it. And the hula balloons are reduced. We were here when a member of parliament was taken in for public rioting related to Galamsey. Within 6 hours, he was let go and given some bail conditions that are reasonable because they felt that he can be seen, he's going to be found, he's not difficult to reach, and all of that. So, what was the difference? And let me also add to this that the Rambo style we see is not acceptable. And what I mean by Rambo style, I would always cite former finance minister's house, where people entered there knowing that there were no people in the house, but they entered with AK-47s, okay, and dressed up as if they were going to war. when you have a warrant to go into somebody's house, must you arm up to the teeth? I mean, when in fact, even the person is known to be outside the country and has lawyers.
Can that not be described as standard procedure, standard operation?
I think that, you know, they barge into people's homes with pregnant women, and they, based on the shock, you know, these women almost lose their babies. I think that we're not in a barbaric time. We are moving, we're progressing, and if not at all, some of us at least have been exposed to how criminals are handled and how they should be handled. I think that if you go to the likes of the Scandinavian countries, I mean, let me say that it's unfortunate, but the criminals are handled like kings and queens, in the sense that, you know, when you look at their cells and the food they eat, some would rather even be arrested, you know, so that they can eat better and not work for it. Yes, I mean, listen, I mean, these are, those places are known in Sawim. Those places are known in Sawim. So I really think that, in view of what is happening, and I'm not here talking necessarily for the MPP party, but I'm talking in the sense that, you know, the tables may turn, and maybe my party may do the same. And that's why I'm saying that it should end. You know, this idea of equalizing, or when I talk, people tell me that, oh, your party did it in times back. No, it doesn't make it right. I am very vocal. I have paid my price even within my party for being vocal. And I think that it doesn't help us. If our party, the MPP, as it is, listen to some of us dissenting minds with regards to, you know, vacating the finance minister early, maybe this would not have been, you know, the turn of events. And I really think that this culture of silencing people when they are right ought to stop. We cannot progress. The only way we can progress is when well-meaning people can express themselves, and then you pay heed to opposing minds. Sometimes your yes men cannot tell you in truthfulness what you ought to do or what you ought not to do. And based on my small experience in politics now, I have seen the beauty of people who oppose you. And let me tell you that those who oppose you sometimes are more frank with you. Like I keep telling John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, we need a minister for defense. I'm pleading with him. Dear Mr. President, we need, at all costs, a defense minister. You cannot run this country as president and defense minister. No. The Constitution doesn't permit it. The Constitution, well thought through, found need to have those separate entities, especially in these times when there are wars in the world, in these times when diplomacy is being toyed with on many fronts. As we sit here, I'm told one of the MPs has been held in custody by a foreign country in another country. Diplomacy. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? And
but if the reason for him being being detained,
I'm just making a point
has
that
got to do with criminal activity. Obviously, diplomacy doesn't come in.
Listen. They cut up a journalist in somebody's what you call it, consulate. Diplomacy played a role. The rest of the world turned a blind eye because diplomacy, though it happened in another country, was in a consulate of the other country. And what is unacceptable in your country may be acceptable in another country. And for that matter, I think that for such reasons, this meeting that will be held between Foreign Affairs Ministry and the Americas may have or may do better should we also have had our defense minister sitting in that meeting, because this has to do with, you know, relations we have in America, in the sense that American military men enter this country. True or false? Yes. So it comes back to my very key point that, dear Mr. President, I'm not NDC, but the country requires that we have a defense minister. Beyond 6 months is unthinkable. And what it means is that if the finance minister is not there, that means presidency will still then leave the finance ministry for what, 8 months? That is serious. I think that if there's anything that I can say about the NDC administration, I'm deeply disappointed in their intolerance for alternative views or comments. And I also want to use this platform to plead with my own MPP communicators. There are many ways to communicate. There are many ways. In the interest of not getting arrested, be mindful of your environment, be mindful of the audience, and our words need to touch voters so that we get their votes. We need to, I mean, as it stands now, the outages are known to all of us. I mean, whether you're MPP or NDC, when the lights go off, the lights don't go off at only MPP homes. Or it goes off at all of us our homes. And when your fridge is off, as it stands now, my own office fridge is broken down because of this light on and off. Fuse is gone, and this would not have been the case. I have to spend some 600 Ghana cedis or so to fix it. So these are some of the true costs of doing so. If you had your kenke and some fish in the fridge, the fish is gone. Yeah. Yesterday my omonko destroyed. You know, some people's tilapia destroyed. So it is worrying. We who communicate will do so appropriately. However, the way and manner we are apprehended needs to be done appropriately. I mean, you know, it's not like a Rambo style. And really, officers, whether police or whatever jurisdiction they may have, any arrest they do needs to be questioned, that what warranted your picking up this person. All of these have to be well thought through. Did you get a warrant from a judge? What process?
Right.
If police is supposed to be arrested, it doesn't mean that as I'm walking here, if somebody says that I've defamed him, you just come straight and pick me up. No, it doesn't work that way. We're not in a banana republic. So,
and even the worry is that some of these pickups, you don't even know where they are sending them. But
I mean, listen,
people even suggest, according to normal practice, you should be able to tell a relative, a family member, where we are sending.
And I think that the system in this country is supposed to be decentralized. Should I say something in Navrongo, why must I be brought to Accra? Is there no court systems in Navrongo? Are the laws in Accra different from Navrongo? I don't know. Is it the case? Can the same laws not work in Navrongo? Is there no high court in Navrongo? Is there no police command in Navrongo? Why must you bring people who say things that are maybe so distant from Accra be brought to Accra? I mean, all of this needs to be carefully looked at. Because I believe that supposing I steal a cow in Tamale, I don't have to be brought to the seat of government because I've stolen a cow. The rules in Accra are the same rules in Tamale, and I have to be tried. In some instances, They've not even allowed the local police to even investigate, to even check the veracity. But then they are picked up so far in the north, transported to Accra, only to be told that, built conditions of unwarranted amount, ganganton amount.
Right.
And you see, your bail terms should match the crime committed. Supposing I take a foul, how then do you give me a bail term of a house? You get what I'm saying? No, it's ridiculous, because it's supposed to compensate literally for, quote unquote, the crime. Should you be abscond?
Right.
So, dear presenter, I know that you are in the media space, and for that matter, you are supposed to be for people to be expressing themselves, and for that reason, I think that it's becoming a bit too much.
Right.
We will talk to our communicators to talk right, but I think that the way politics is done, some expressions do not taste well when you are in government. And we took some. I still even take some in opposition. I've been called many characters that if my mom should hear, she would say, don't do politics. But we move on. You need a thick skin to do politics.
Right.
So the presidency ought to speak to the government agencies who are trying to appease him or trying to make believe that they love the presidency to, calm down and allow as it is, the laws of this country to work.
Right.
And people have every right to sue people in court. These are all avenues. This Rambo-style pickup of people need to stop.
Right. No. Yeah. Your views on, briefly.
Yeah, I like that briefly. I do not have much facts about this particular arrest, but generally speaking, taking it from where my colleague has just ended. David, in the first place, people must be treated with dignity. No matter the crime caused, the way you are arrested, the person is arrested, must be done with some kind of dignity. But what we are experiencing today did not just start today. In as much as I do not, or in as much as I agree with my colleague that it is not right what we are seeing today. Just yesterday, when I say yesterday, the past government, just about 2 years ago, in fact, I would say that was when personally, apart from 1979, those days, the cool days when I was young, it was until after 2016 that I saw this kind of arrest of people. People are treated as if they are not human beings. I remembered somewhere 2 years ago, I traveled home, and when I got to the airport, I met these soldiers dressed in a manner that I never saw before. So I asked people, they said, that's the government. Deployed people to various areas to monitor election. I asked myself, are they no police? So people were treated this way. And as KOD said, it's partly because of that we voted out the MPP government. So we must not also repeat the same thing. But at the same time, free speech, yes, we allow free speech. The Constitution allows for people to express themselves freely. But when you are expressing yourself, you must express yourself within the confines of the law. If I just get up and tell the media that president is a thief, what evidence do I have? I must be taken by the facts, or then the laws of the country. I must be given the necessary sanction.
Move on to our last issue. We have about 15 minutes to wrap up. I want to look at the economy, right? Because there's a big debate going on in town that has aroused some social media, commentary. The chairman of the NPP's communication committee, right, has been speaking tough, and he is suggesting that the electorate, that Ghanaians, do not eat stability and inflation. And the government spokesperson, Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, also came on social media and responded that, well, if the electorate does not eat instability and inflation, they don't eat stability. Obviously, they don't eat inflation and they don't eat instability. So obviously, it generates some debates. I want to start with you, Doc. I'll come back to you because you are an economist. Give us the economic sense of what these two debates or these two arguments are about.
I don't know where to start from, actually, because when it comes to these issues, I want to talk a lot. There's a lot to talk about. At the first glance of this particular question, which I have here, that says we do not eat inflation, we do not eat stability. For me, it baffles my mind as an economist, or even as an ordinary citizen of an economy like Ghana. Yes, at first glance, it looks a bit rhetorical, but to some extent, there's some wisdom behind it. Okay. What households experience today or on their daily basis has to do with what? Cost of living. And cost of living, talk about cost of living, you cannot talk about cost of living without talking about inflation, without talking about stability. Okay. So, first of all, what is inflation? You say electorates do not eat stability nor inflation. But we don't eat them, but we experience them. Inflation simply means persistent rise in the prices of general goods and services. So when you go to the market to buy, say, a bowl of tomatoes, today they tell you maybe it's 5 cedis. The next day you go, they tell you it's 10 cedis. The next day you go, they tell you it's 20 cedis. There's that kind of rise in the price of that particular essential commodity, right? Are your incomes increasing at the same time as inflation? The price, let me not even use the word inflation, the price of the particular commodity is rising. No. Families complain of rising food prices. Family complains of transport fares, persistent increase in transport fares. They talk about increases in cost of healthcare, and so many macroeconomic variables. So we don't eat it. We don't eat inflation, but we experience inflation as households or families. And what is stability? Stability, simply, we are actually looking at stability or stable macroeconomic indicators such as inflation, such as prices stable prices in the economy. Governments have the responsibility to ensure that there is stable prices in the goods and services so that the value or the purchasing power of households' incomes remains stable. Is it a crime to ensure that the income that you receive, your household income, retains its value over a certain period of time? No. So indeed, we don't eat stability, we don't eat inflation, but we experience them. So
the import of the debates got to do with the fact that, and you earlier on started by saying incomes level have remained the same.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, prices of goods and services
continue to rise.
are going
yes.
up. Can the import of the debates be that Ghanaians are not feeling the economic indicators in their pockets?
Yeah, that is why.
Because the economic indicators are all positive, but yet you have also alluded to the fact that it doesn't really trickle down to the pockets.
Yes, but at the same time, you know, when we look at macroeconomic stability of any country, macroeconomic stability touches on the various macroeconomic, the broader, let me not use, the broader economic indicators that affect households and individuals and businesses. So these macroeconomic indicators will affect your exchange rates. It affects opportunities, economic opportunities or employment opportunities in the country, interest rates, and even investor confidence. When investors are confident that the economy is stable, they are able to invest, and this creates jobs. You remember, or you know, that government alone cannot create jobs. And in the past, we heard the fact that the private sector is the engine of growth. So when investors have confidence in the economy and they can comfortably predict economic outcomes over a certain period of time, it provides a kind of confidence or impetus for them to invest more, and once they invest more, the economy grows, more opportunities. Yes, so currently what we are experiencing, yesterday, when I say yesterday, I always refer to the past government, the MPP. I'm not talking politics here, mind you please. But I experienced a situation under the previous administration where inflation rose to more than 50% in this country. You go to the market today to buy this pen, say 1 cedi, the next day is 2 cedis, the next day is 3 cedis. You know, that persistent rise in the price of key goods and services, that did not augur well. And within that period, you also notice that salaries or incomes of households were not, increasing or consistently with the increase in price.
Are they doing the same now?
Even though now,
is it the same situation?
No,
in terms of salaries and stuff?
No, it's not. I don't think it's. I'm not receiving salary anyway, but
right.
I don't think it's the same situation. But the good thing here is that when I go to buy this phone, say 5 cedis, I am confident that tomorrow when I go, it will still be 5 cedis. You get a point?
No, I want us to
come into
clear.
The packets of the people.
Is the present economic indicators, because that's the basis for the debates currently, is it reflecting in the ordinary man's life? I think that's the import of the discussion.
Well, I will agree that it's not really reflecting in the pockets of the ordinary Ghanaians. I am saying this because I'm a farmer at the same time, and you have your goods, your produce from the farm. There's no money to buy, there's no market for it. What do we do? But we say the economy is stable. So many farmers are affected. So many businesses are affected because there isn't actually market for their goods and demand for the demand for their goods and services.
there's glut on the market?
Partly because there's no purchasing power.
Which is sweet, because the argument we hear is that there's glut, right?
Not because there's no demand for it. Because there's no demand for it. People don't have the money. The businesses don't have the money to buy. Yeah. Individuals do not have the money to buy. And I tell you that even people in government, we talk about this. People in government, we talk about this. Yes, prices are stable. Prices are low and stable, right? But people are not able to buy. Okay? People are not able to buy.
What's contributing to that?
Maybe government policy.
Is that why people are not able to buy, or there's no money?
Maybe there's.
To add a few words.
I'll come to you though. I want him to land.
10 minutes.
I want him to land. Then I'll come to you. Yes, sir.
I'm also, even though we're not talking politics, but I don't like to talk politics because I'm not representing the NDC government on this particular platform. Okay. But you see, personally, I expect the central bank, the fiscal policy and the monetary policy to find a medium point.
Expression.
Yes.
In the lives of the people.
So that the government is able to release funds. The fiscal policy must provide for the living standards of the people. Because all these jargons we are talking about, stability, inflation and all that, the bottom line is standard of living of the Ghanaian people. Okay, so, but currently as we speak, people have spoken to me and I also experience it. It's not easy for anybody in the country. Even though, yes, today is better than yesterday. But what should we do to make sure that tomorrow is better? Thank you.
All right, so one of the key things, inflation literally is to do with prices, and it's a summary of the prices at the point in time and how high it's gone or how low. I must admit, under the NPP administration, it was 53. Towards the end, we came into the 20s, and we were hoping for a further decline, which now Ghana is enjoying a further decline in the inflation, all prices in this country. Now, the key thing is that, unfortunately, this government has, been fixated on forex exchange numbers, and that they think that all of us buy or sell in dollars, or all of us import into the country. Some of us, our businesses are service that we render, and for that matter, we do not import necessarily or export. Now, the key thing is that there's always a lag behind in terms of when government policies are rolled out or monetary policies are done, and then also, let me admit that the FX is not, the whole economy is not FX. If the dollar rate is good, it doesn't mean that everything is good. We are in a country where electricity prices have been jacked up, tariffs are high, we pay a cedi at the pump each time we buy fuel, and we were told that would maintain the lights. But we've paid and are paying at the pump, and the lights are not on. And mind you, hairdressers, barbering shops, catering services who are doing nice cakes.
Because of upgrading of systems.
Let me tell me you are upgrading my system after 7 p.m. when I know all of ECG's operational people are sleeping. You can't tell me that. Do you get my point? The upgrades are done before 6 p.m. So when you take my light off at 10, I would ask you, what are you upgrading at 10 p.m.? It's a fallacy. It's a lie. Okay? So
you've not seen the transformers springing up all
listen, do the transformer work. And let me even educate you further that to change over transformers, they ensure that the new one is literally functional. And then within moments, they move cables from the old to the new. So that transition, at best, shouldn't take 2 hours. That true transition where the lights should go off shouldn't take more than 2 hours. But the outages in places where they are yet to do transformer changes and whatnot are sometimes 12 hours, 8 hours. Okay, so spare me those things. It's the same Minister of Energy who was in my administration educating Ghanaians that it doesn't make sense, these transformer changes and technical things they are talking about. Mind you, this Volta issue, we were having Doomsor before the fires. So what really has changed? And now that they've resolved that issue, the lights are still going off. Yesterday I slept in the dark. Okay, so my key point here in reference to what people are saying is that yes, you are quoting us inflationary figures, but my pocket, when I go to the market, the expenditures I make, I don't feel the inflationary dip that you're talking about, because my earnings and my expenses are not coherent. You know, if I was a government worker and I was being paid 2,000 a month, my light bill has gone up, my water bill has gone up, my salary has maintained the same. So though you will tell me that inflation is normal, the tariffs you've put on these things does not make it normal for me. I can't afford it anymore. And in addition, stability is relative. Stability. You can go to a francophone country right now, they'll tell you they are very stable. And we can bless them for that. But when you come to Ghana and they tell you you are not stable, your instability might be even better than the stability in somebody's country. You know, in terms of relativity. I mean that is what I'm getting at. So allow me to do my politics, since you don't want to. American economy, they'll tell you is stable. Ghana economy is stable. But relative to the American economy, the things that they can afford to do, you and I, we can't afford to do here. So that is what I mean by relativity in terms of stability. European countries' stability is far better than an African stability because of what they see as basic for them. Here, can you go to government and take money to go and buy food? We don't have such programs, do we? We don't. But they have it. So when they say that their economy is stable, is very different. Mind you, he's had the South African experience. When I worked outside, we loved to sell medical things to South Africa because their prices were good. So what it means is that the South African healthcare delivery system is top-notch in terms of the access to quality medication. Okay, and then you come to Ghana, and what Ghana's healthcare insurance will buy for you, South Africa may say that no, this is not good for my people. We want the best. So the South African ordinary healthcare drugs are premium, not what we are trying to do here. So invariably, I think that the two can hold. Inflation appears good on paper, but Ghanaians are not feeling it. It happens. And it happens because for the NDC, another government was at 53 and then 20. So that is their, let me say, their baseline they are working with. But the Ghanaian man is not going off baselines. The Ghanaian man is going off, how do I afford Komi Kekena? As the minority leader said, now we don't even have light to grind the maize for us to even make the kenke. And then you tell me we are stable. How do I say we're stable? When in one government at least you could grind the maize and make the kenke. In this government, the light to stay on to grind the maize is a problem. So it is relative, and by and large, listen, if the economy does well with lights on, it goes to all of us our credit as a nation. And I want the lights to be on so that barbering shops, catering services, hotels can function, and hospitals.
Right.
Many of my equipments have to be put off when the lights are off, even when I have generator, because of the outages and the power fluctuations.
Right.
So, you know, Felix Kwachi is finding it difficult to appreciate the fact that the numbers and the feeling are different.
Right.
There'll be a lag always in economic terms. There's always going to be a lag between the actual numbers and the reality.
Right. In about a minute, if we can do that. My time is up.
Yes, I just wanted to add to this issue of relativity of stability that you mentioned. You know, when we talk of inflation, we talk of stability. Stability has to do with a broader macroeconomic, how stable they are. And inflation in particular here, how stable, how we have been able to contain inflation within a certain band. Okay,
Right.
over a period of time in an economy. Area or so not beyond Ghana. So I don't want us to be comparing yes in relative no I don't want so it's not, but in actual fact in economics we are looking at how stable the macroeconomic environment of a particular country is within a particular period of time.
But when your lights are not on, you are not stable.
Yeah, but
Let me do my messages so that we're done with today's program. This one is from Daniel Apaliok from Sandema. He said, the submission of KOD is apt, courageous and timely. I cannot help but agree with him that citizens must be allowed to freely vent their emotions, especially on matters that affect their lives and livelihood. Thank you so much for that. This one says, hello, David. It is true that we don't eat economic stability, but economic stability affects our finances, our purchasing power, and for that matter, affects our eating pattern. If you were eating thrice a day, we have to reduce it to once a day. Echo from Saltpond sent that. Echo, thank you for that. This one's from Sami. Is in Ho. Good morning to you and your guests. How do you expect someone who could not manage STC to lead your communication team? His public utterances do not augur well for the survival of the NPP in 2028 general election. All right, thank God. Today things are much more better than 2 years ago. All right. This one says, good morning to you and your guests. Okay, I've read that. Sammy, thank you for that message. Stephen from Kwabenya says, please ask Mr. Adomako Kisi whether his electrical items did not get spoiled when Napo was doing Domso CC. And people hypocrites. It says I should ask that.
I don't have a memory.
All right, so on Facebook, I've seen you, Maxwell Senu from South Africa. Thank you so much for watching the program. I've seen your commentary. Seth Abuchi is concerned about freedom of speech. Does not mean you misinform, you misinterpret, you spread half-truth and defamation or another. Thank you so much. Seth Abuchi, I've seen you. And Seidu Isaka says NPP communications do insult and lie against their opponents, which is very bad. This is not democracy. And David Labi, I've seen you also on Facebook. All right, it says, I don't know all the facts, but if we was complaining about Dumso, I agree with KOD, but I don't agree that there should be unconstrained free speech. Rwanda is a case in point. Doug, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Yakubu, thank you for passing through this morning. And also, thank you so much for doing the watching. My name is David New OTOKUNOR. So God willing, we'll be here safely tomorrow to serve you some short breakfast. Until then, as always, be very productive. Have a nice day. Bye.